Reality isn't broken. You've just never been shown the real one. Carlos Castaneda. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. They took something from you a long time ago, quietly, bez permission. And now, most people don't even remember it was ever theirs. It wasn't your money, not your time, not even your freedom. What they took is deeper. They stole your ability to feel what's real. You live inside a system that doesn't need you to be conscious. It just needs you to function. Wake up, work, obey, consume, repeat. No questions, no pauses, no deviations. Every screen you scroll, every word you hear in the news, every fact you've been fed since childhood. All carefully designed, and not for your liberation, for your obedience. You believe the world is what they told you it is, that your country is what the flag says it is, that the system protects you, that laws are sacred, that you were born with a debt, to work, to obey, to follow. But stop. Who told you that? Who benefits from that belief? You believe the Earth is round because you've seen photos. You believe space exists because of NASA's videos. But have you ever touched it, felt it, experienced it yourself? Or have you simply believed what the screen showed you? This isn't about conspiracy. This is about hypnosis. They gave you images instead of truth, sound bites instead of silence, algorithms instead of questions, and they call it reality. But what if none of it is real? What if the truth you believe has been constructed, edited, sold, like a product? What if you've been taught to feel safe inside a cage as long as the bars are invisible? They replaced your intuition with headlines, your inner compass with notifications, and worst of all, they taught you to doubt your own voice. That's the cost of the system. You stop feeling, you stop questioning, you stop living. You exist on autopilot. You weren't born to be a program. You weren't born to be predictable. You weren't born to believe everything you're told. You were born with the ability to see through illusions, but they buried it under rules, under fear, under noise. And here's the one truth that shatters everything. Nothing is what it seems. Everything can and should be questioned, because reality is not what's shown. It's what you feel when everything else is silent, and they are terrified of you remembering that. You feel that quiet discomfort inside you, that strange itch under your skin when something feels off, but you can't explain why. That's not anxiety. That's your truth trying to wake up. You're not broken. You're not lost. You're not alone. You've just been asleep. And this is your moment of interruption. If you're still here, it means something inside you has already started to question. Maybe quietly, maybe painfully, but it's there. That voice that says, something's not right. And that voice is your greatest weapon. Because the system doesn't fear force. It fears awareness. Start here. Doubt everything. Doubt the narratives. Doubt the headlines. Doubt the polished photos from space. Doubt the endless celebrations of progress. Doubt even the idea that you owe this world anything. You were born into a structure that never asked for your permission. You were taught to follow, to comply, to respect invisible rules written by invisible hands. But who created those rules? Who gains from your loyalty, from your trust, from your silence? They want you numb, distracted, addicted to content, addicted to validation, addicted to the feeling of being a good citizen. But when was the last time you stopped and asked, who benefits from this performance? Every app, every law, every institution, it all sells the same lie, that you're not enough unless you're obedient. That freedom comes from fitting in. That questioning makes you dangerous. That truth is what gets the most likes. But real truth, it doesn't trend. It doesn't go viral. It usually hurts. It often isolates. But it liberates. You don't owe them your mind. You don't owe them your beliefs. And you sure as hell don't owe them your loyalty. That was implanted, injected, conditioned into you so deeply that now even your resistance feels like guilt. And that's how control works best, when it makes you police yourself. Here's the twist they'll never tell you. Your doubts are not the problem. They're the beginning of truth. Every time you hesitate to believe something, every time you pause before swallowing the narrative, you are closer to reality than most ever get. And that's why you're dangerous. That's why you've been silenced, ridiculed, pushed to doubt your own doubt. Because once you truly wake up, they can't control you anymore. So if these words echo inside, subscribe to this channel. Not because it gives answers, but because it dares to ask the questions most are afraid of. Algorithms will never promote this truth, but you can. You are the algorithm now. If you feel this, share it, spread it, let others find this mirror. Join the Telegram. That's where we go deeper, rawer, unfiltered. No noise, no censorship, no illusions. Just those who are tired of pretending. And if you see yourself in these words, write in the comments, "I no longer run from pain." Let's see how many of us are truly ready to face the truth. Let's see how many are willing to lose the lies to find themselves. This is not about rebellion. It's about remembrance. It's about peeling away everything that was never yours to begin with. It's about standing in front of the mirror, stripped of expectations, roles, duties, and asking, who am I without the script? The system doesn't want you to find out, but you can. And once you do, nothing will ever look the same again. The moment you begin to question the world around you, something fundamental shifts. You stop being a passive consumer of reality and become an active investigator. And that's the real danger to the system. Not rebellion, not protest, but the quiet, internal decision to see with your own eyes. Most people aren't blind. They're distracted, trained to focus on the surface, entertained to death, medicated against discomfort, and praised for conformity. But once you look underneath, you begin to realize that almost everything you've been told is either incomplete, distorted, or strategically crafted to keep you manageable. Everything is packaged. Education teaches you what to think, not how to think. Media doesn't inform, it scripts. Culture doesn't evolve naturally, it's engineered. Even your preferences, tastes, and values have been shaped by repeated exposure and subtle coercion. When you start noticing the patterns, it becomes impossible to unsee. The repetition, the framing, the timing, it's not random, it's design. And the more seamless it looks, the more effective it is. Most control isn't visible. It doesn't look like chains. It feels like agreement. It feels like just how things are. And then comes the inner conflict, the part of you that still wants to believe, that clings to the comfort of certainty, that fears being alone in your doubt. That's not weakness, that's programming. The system raised you to crave belonging more than truth, to fear exile more than lies, to smile when you're breaking, to stay silent when your soul is screaming. But that pain, that pressure you feel when you pretend, that's the proof that something inside you is still alive, still resisting, still remembering. You were not made to be domesticated. Your thoughts were not meant to be regulated by algorithms. Your emotions were not meant to be optimized for productivity. You are not a brand. You are not content. You are not a data point in someone else's model. You are a living question, raw, unpredictable, full of paradox. And that's exactly why they work so hard to tame you. Because a person who thinks for themselves is harder to control than 1,000 obedient ones. Start noticing how deep the script runs, how your language is shaped, how your emotions are labeled, how your desires are steered. You didn't choose most of what you believe. It was chosen for you. And the moment you reclaim that choice, you become something rare, not better, not smarter, just real. And real is the one thing this system cannot digest. It sells identities, not individuality. It rewards compliance, not curiosity. So now, the choice is yours. Go back to the comfort of illusion, or stay in the discomfort of awareness. Most people will never choose the second path, not because they're weak, but because they've been trained to believe that questioning is betrayal. But it's not. It's the beginning of truth. And if you're still listening, you've already chosen. You were born into a structure, not a visible prison, not a cage of bars, but something much more subtle, a psychological architecture. From the moment you opened your eyes, you were surrounded by ideas that weren't yours. Roles were assigned, expectations installed. You didn't choose the family you were born into, the culture you absorbed, or the stories that were repeated to you over and over. By the time you could speak, you were already wearing a mask. And by the time you became aware enough to question it, that mask had fused with your identity. This is not your fault. It's how systems maintain themselves, by turning free beings into predictable units. You were taught to doubt your impulses, to suppress your instincts, to obey without context. You were punished for saying no, rewarded for being agreeable, and praised when you sacrificed yourself for approval. And underneath all that conditioning, something inside you began to fade. That inner signal, your knowing, was overridden by scripts you didn't write. You became a performer in someone else's production, forgetting there was ever a backstage. The deepest form of control isn't external. It's when your own mind becomes your warden. When your inner critic uses the voice of a parent, a teacher, or society itself. When your guilt isn't a reaction to real harm, but a programmed response to breaking a rule you never agreed to. Most people live in that state without even realizing it. They think they're making choices, but they're only selecting from a menu someone else created. They think they're free because they feel busy. They think they're awake because they're functional. But function isn't freedom, it's performance. And the most brutal part, the system has convinced you that healing means becoming better at functioning inside the same structure that broke you. That growth means working harder. That maturity means accepting injustice with grace. That enlightenment means detaching from your anger, your pain, your truth. But what if none of that is true? What if healing means remembering who you were before the programming? What if growth means unlearning? What if maturity means finally saying, "This isn't mine, I give it back"? You don't need to be fixed. You need to be freed. There's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with the idea that your pain is a problem to be solved rather than a message to be heard. You're not here to fit in. You're here to remember, to wake up, to reclaim. And that means confronting the voices in your head that were never yours to begin with. The ones that whisper, "You're not enough." The ones that tell you to stay small. The ones that mock your questions, shame your feelings, and demand your obedience. That is not your truth. That is not your voice. That is the echo of a system trying to survive inside your psyche. And it's time to clear it out. Not with violence, not with rage, but with clarity, with refusal, with a slow, steady, unapologetic return to your own center. You don't need permission to do this. You never did. You just needed to remember that you can. The most dangerous lie you were ever told is that the truth is somewhere out there, that it's hidden in ancient books, behind government walls, in secret programs, in the mouths of experts, that you need someone else to give you access to it, that you are not capable of knowing unless someone more educated, more spiritual, more official tells you what's real. That lie is the foundation of your disconnection, because it trains you to look everywhere except the one place truth actually lives, inside you. Think about it. Since childhood, you were taught that authority equals accuracy, that science has the final word, that history books are neutral, that media is objective, that the answers are already known, and your job is to memorize, accept, repeat. But knowledge is not the same as truth. Truth isn't data. It's not information. It's not consensus. It's an experience, a knowing that arises when you strip away everything you've been taught to believe and feel what's real without anyone else's filter. Most people never reach that space, not because they're lazy or stupid, but because they've been conditioned to fear it, to stand in that silence, without reference points, without approval, without certainty, is terrifying. It's easier to cling to the system's version of reality, even if it hurts, even if it numbs, even if it slowly kills your soul. Because at least it's familiar, at least it's accepted, at least it fits. But if you're here, still listening, still breathing through this, then a part of you is already choosing the harder path. The one with fewer answers, but more truth. The one where you stop trying to be right and start trying to be real. And that means letting go of the need to believe what everyone else does. Letting go of the illusion that there is such a thing as the way things are. There is only what you've been taught and what you're willing to question. The systems will never invite you to question them. They exist to maintain themselves. Your compliance is their currency. Your doubt is their threat. That's why those who question are labeled as unstable, rebellious, or dangerous. But the real danger lies in not questioning, in accepting the surface, in confusing comfort with truth, in choosing silence when your gut is screaming. Because silence can look like peace, but sometimes it's just submission. And here's the paradox. Once you stop believing everything, you don't become lost. You become grounded. When you no longer need someone to tell you what's true, you begin to discover a kind of clarity that no institution can provide. You realize that truth isn't found. It's remembered, and it was never far. It was just buried under layers of noise, fear, and repetition. So start there. Don't try to believe something new. Just stop automatically believing what you've always been told. Pause before agreeing. Listen before reacting. Feel before deciding. You'll start to notice how much of your life was lived on autopilot. How many of your values were inherited, not chosen. How much of your identity was scripted, not created. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the beginning of everything. Now comes the most important part. Not just seeing the illusion, but knowing how to step out of it. Because awareness alone isn't enough. If you keep seeing the lies but continue living by them, they still own you. The next level is practice. Daily, conscious action that rewires the system from within. Not to escape reality, but to stop letting someone else define it for you. That begins with a single habit. Question everything. Not to become cynical, but to become conscious. Not to reject the world, but to stop blindly trusting it. Start with your thoughts. Each time a belief shows up, especially the ones that feel automatic, pause. Ask, is this mine, or was it given to me? You'll be surprised how often the answer is silence. That silence means the belief came from outside. A parent, a teacher, a screen, a fear. And when it's not yours, you're not obligated to keep carrying it. Let it go. You don't need to explain why. You don't need to justify your shift. The truth is reason enough. Next, question your language. The words you use shape your perception. Every time you say, "I have to," stop. Do you really? Or are you acting from habit, guilt, fear? Replace it with, "I choose to," or "I don't choose to." That one shift brings your power back into your hands. No one owns your time. No one owns your energy. And no one gets to decide what matters to you, unless you give them that power. Take it back. Now, your relationships. Watch for the patterns. Do you show up to be seen or to be accepted? Do you speak your truth or perform what's safe? Do you shrink when someone disapproves? That's not connection. That's survival mode. Real connection starts when you stop negotiating your authenticity. It's not easy. You will lose people, but you'll find yourself. And the people who remain will see the real you, not the mask you wore to keep the peace. And most of all, your emotions. You've been taught to regulate, suppress, optimize your feelings. But feelings aren't mistakes. They are messengers. Anger is not a flaw. It's a signal. Sadness is not weakness. It's release. Fear is not failure. It's alertness. Stop fixing them. Start listening. Let the emotions move. Let them teach you. And then decide what to do from a place of awareness, not avoidance. One powerful practice: the pause. When something triggers you, stop. Don't react. Don't explain. Don't judge. Just feel. That gap between stimulus and response, that's where you meet yourself. That's where the system loses power over you. And over time, that pause becomes your freedom. This work isn't glamorous. It won't look impressive on social media, but it's the only kind of work that makes you truly alive. There are no shortcuts, no quick fixes, just repetition, attention, courage, and slowly, one decision at a time, you begin to rebuild your reality. Not based on what you were told, but based on what you know, in your body, in your heart, in your bones. Truth isn't something you argue about. It's something you live, quietly, relentlessly, without apology. There is one thing more valuable now than any money, any status, any education: a conscious, independent mind. A mind that sees, a mind that questions, a mind that is not owned. Because in a world built on illusion, clarity is rebellion. And clarity only comes when you are willing to detach from everything they trained you to believe. Your greatest asset today is your ability to think for yourself, to observe without absorbing, to see through the noise and recognize what is manipulation, what is fear, what is control, and what is real. Most people aren't living. They're reacting. They are pushed by narratives, pulled by emotions, shaped by invisible hands. They don't see the strings. They don't question the stage. They just follow the rhythm of the program. But once you step out of that rhythm, once you see from the side instead of through the screen, everything changes. You become untouchable in a way that no system understands. Because now, you don't just exist in their world, you witness it. You don't obey automatically. You don't panic on cue. You don't confuse noise with truth. That's the shift, from reacting to observing, from absorbing to analyzing, from blindly trusting to consciously choosing. You don't need to argue with the system. You don't need to fight it. You simply stop feeding it your energy, your belief, your fear, and that starves it more than protest ever could. You walk with awareness. You move with intention. You hold your power without showing it off. You know what's yours and what isn't. And you stop letting anyone else decide that for you. It's not easy. The world wants you scared. It wants you distracted. It wants you so overwhelmed by fear, war, division, and chaos that you run back into the cage just to feel safe again. But safety is the new control. Comfort is the new prison. And you have to see through that too. You have to know that real peace doesn't come from obeying. It comes from understanding. Real freedom doesn't come from permission. It comes from awareness. Real truth doesn't scream. It waits in silence. So ask yourself now, do you want to keep living on autopilot, reacting to headlines, obeying systems that were never built for your freedom? Or are you ready to step back, clear your vision, and live by your own truth, not the one they sold you? Are you ready to think critically, feel deeply, and act consciously? Because that's what it means to be free today. Not to escape the system, but to stop being controlled by it from within. Every single day, look at the world not just with eyes, but with awareness. Watch how narratives are built. Watch how fear is used. Watch how authority is packaged. Then pause. Think. Choose. That's the revolution. Not in the streets, in the mind, in your breath, in your next decision, in your refusal to be owned. And if you're still here, if these words didn't scare you away, it means you're part of something rare. A group of people who are done pretending, who are done sleeping, who are ready to live fully, consciously, freely. So if you feel it, subscribe to this channel, not for more content, for more truth. If this shook something awake in you, join the Telegram. That's where the deeper work continues. And if this video brought you back to yourself, write in the comments, I no longer run from pain. My darkness is my strength. I remove the masks. I accept my shadow. Let's build something real. Let's see how many of us are out here, living, questioning, remembering. Let's create a space where the truth can breathe. And no matter what comes next, remember, this is just the beginning. You're not alone, and nothing will ever be the same again.